So today I want to talk about this LCD panel upgrade kit. Now this is specific to the Tower 500 case by ThermalTake. I recently completed the build on that. It's a case I can highly recommend. But today's video is just going to be specific on this upgrade kit. Upon opening the box, you'll find that this is a very simple kit. Obviously, you get the new LCD screen itself. Now that screen is pre-installed and ready to go in the new panel. That makes the installation of this very simple to do. Get the cabling done, which we'll talk about in just a second. This new panel is going to bolt right into its place, put the thumb screw back on, and you're ready to go. Now the only other component included here is the cable itself. Now one end of this is a 9-pin USB connection that's designed for going in your USB header. In my case, I've got it in a USB hub inside the basement of this case, but same thing. So once you make that connection, it splits off into two connectors. Both of them are micro USB. You only need one of those. One end is going to plug into this panel, doesn't matter which one. The other end is designed for a second display if you happen to have one. I know that ThermalTake makes, I'm sure, what is this same LCD screen that fits over your memory module, so more on your motherboard, but you can use both of those at the same time if you choose to do so. Basically, get that cable connected to your motherboard or your USB hub, whatever you choose to do, and then kind of route those cables back through your case. Now, in my case, I just wrapped up the one cable that I wasn't using and tucked it away inside there. Now, as far as where to run the cable, the way that this panel sits, the cable connects over here on the right side as you're facing the front of it. I initially played around with running that cable through the center of my two fans, and that didn't seem to work out too well. You could get that to work, but it leaves a little bit of cable there, and I worried about it interfering with those fans at some point in the future. So what I did is I ran that cable from my hub over here on the right side in the rear, and just ran it over through the front over on the right hand side, and then connected right into there. So once you make those connections, get that ran, just make sure it doesn't interfere with any fans and components you have installed down there, obviously. So once you've got your USB cable connected properly, go ahead and reattach your panel, put your thumb screw back in, and you're ready to go. Power up your PC. Now, as it's booting up, you should get a ThermalTake boot animation on this. That will help you to know that your panel is installed correctly. There's no issues with it. If you don't get that boot animation, I would power off your PC, recheck your USB connections, try some different connections if needed. So once you get your PC booted up, go ahead and go to thermaltake.com and download the RGB Plus 2.0 software. And you should be able to find that under support and downloads. So once you get that downloaded, go ahead and extract that file, and then go ahead and run the setup application. And the version I'm installing today is 2.0.8. If you're watching this in the future, it might be a different version than that. I would accept all of the defaults for this. All right, and once it's finished, go ahead and run the application. You may have a whole lot of other ThermalTake devices. I don't have any others installed today. You may get a little bit of a different message on this first screen here. So once you get into the software here, the first place you want to start is I would go over to the settings option. And of course you can set all of the basic options. You can set your language, your temperature display, Celsius or Fahrenheit. So I recommend that you set this to go ahead and start automatically. The software, if it's not running, only displays the default panel, which we'll talk about in just a second. If you, on every startup, if you want it to display a certain thing, go ahead and just make sure you select these boxes to start on Windows startup. And then you can come down here to the TT 3.9-inch LCD panel. Now this is where you're going to set the boot animation if you want something different. The standby screen, this is what I was just talking about. If the software is not running, this is the screen that you get. You're just going to click upload here. You can select whichever one you want. I just have some of the Hardware Artisan banner art. So we can select that, and of course then you can move it around. With your mouse wheel you can zoom in and out of the photo here so you can kind of center it up. I wish there were more options for this standby screen so that maybe you didn't necessarily need this software running in the background, because it is just one more piece. I wish there was like a carousel or some of the other options that you could do. So go ahead and close that window once you get that set. The next place you're going to go is you're going to go over to lighting. And then of course you may have a bunch of different objects here, but for our purposes today, we're just going to be talking the ThermalTake 3.9-inch LCD panel. Now it's going to just show you what's currently displayed here. Anytime you select something, it doesn't update this preview. In this case, some of these, to see what they look like, you actually have to hit apply, and you have to go and apply the thing. So at this point, we just have the default ThermalTake logo on our display. So over here on the left, this is going to be where you're going to start. Choose the drop down arrow here, and this is going to give you all of the options that you can choose from. But let's start with the upload file. I think this is going to be the option that most people choose to use. So once you do upload file, we'll come back to these here in just a second, CPU temp, frequency, so on. But let's move over here. You're going to click the upload button, and then it's going to give you a screen here that you can click open, and you can go ahead and select whatever JPEG, GIF, PNG file, whatever you want. You can also do video here, which we'll talk about in a second. And of course, some of it won't be formatted for the layout of this LCD panel, but in that case, you can zoom into the object, you can move it around and center it. Once you have it to where you want it, just click OK, and then you're going to click Apply. And then you'll see that it finally changes it here. And you'll see that it changes it on the screen. So we get a couple of just default options here, but it's not ever really clear what these are for. But I think there's just, these are the two main graphics. Of course, you can click more here, and this will take you to the ThermalTake website, and you can just select from a whole bunch of downloads. Now, there are a handful of these that are formatted, for the proper orientation of this panel. These ones down here, AIO GIFs, and the horizontal ones. So basically, you can just select that, and you can download it. I've had to right-click on it, save image as, and then I'm just putting it on my desktop into ThermalTake LCD. I can upload, go to open, go to my desktop, ThermalTake LCD, and then I've got these ones that I saved here. It puts it here, and then you can hit apply, and then you can hit OK. As you can see on the LCD display, it works, it looks good. Now, let's get back over to the left here, because on this display here, you can choose from all of these different statistics to overlay onto this graphic. So let's take CPU temp, for example. And if I apply that, you'll see that it overlays the CPU temperature down in the lower right-hand corner. Now, of course, from here, we can modify the text brightness, the screen brightness. We can kind of modify and customize the screen. So you can select all of these different options over here, and it will just go through what they call a carousel and just kind of cycle through those. This is going to be another gripe about this piece of software in this LCD panel, is nowhere do I see anywhere that I can change the text size. And in my opinion, putting these, overlaying a graphic, great idea, but it's just too small. It's not prominent enough. Down in the lower right-hand corner, it's so small to me that unless I'm sitting right in front of this LCD display, I really can't see it, and I'm sitting a few feet from it. So you can go ahead and upload a video file as well. And I think the maximum size of that is 20 megabytes, so it's pretty small. So let's go ahead and select one here. And of course, you can see it animating on the screen here. Let's go ahead and hit OK, and let's apply that. We'll turn the screen brightness up a little bit here. And so you can see that video is playing just fine, no problem. And of course, on the video, you can see that it's overlaying all of the statistics, and it looks a little bit better on this particular overlay, or this video here. So not too bad. I do wish you could change the size of it. And on this particular screen, I do wish you could change the text color. You really get no ability to change anything. And of course, you can rotate the orientation if your display is in a different orientation, but in this case, it's not. So next in the list here is going to be CPU temp. This would be one that a lot of people would be interested in. Just select it, you can apply it, and then of course you get whatever your temperature is. Now, I've cross-referenced most of these statistics. They all seem to be pretty accurate, except for CPU load. That's the only one that seems to be off to me, and I really haven't pinpointed as to why. The CPU temperature, this one's in agreement with Corsair, Ryzen Master, Hardware Info, so that all looks good. And all of the others, as best I can tell, are really right in line with those applications. It is the CPU load that's just off for some reason. Now, you do get some basic customizations with all of these here. You can change the background, of course, and you get just a basic color selection wheel. And so, we'll just choose a blue. Most of these honestly don't look all that great to me, but you can kind of just customize this to however you want. You can change the text color, just make it pop however you like. It's got some quick keys there. So that looks pretty good. And then the visual, of course, will be any graphic that's over here, so the little thermometer on the left-hand side and the bar across the bottom. Okay, but that's really it. You can't change the layout, you can't change the text size, you really can't do anything. You can, of course, turn the light off if you prefer, but that doesn't make any sense. So I do wish there was a little bit more customization to this, like change the font, change the layout a little bit, maybe in the future. But as of right now, how it sits here, all you can change are some of the colors of it. Okay, so moving on, the rest of these, the majority of them are going to be just really the same way. And we get CPU frequency, 2.4 gigahertz. CPU load, we'll change that. 52%, this PC is doing virtually nothing. Corsair shows in fact, I'll bring Corsair over here so you can see these two. Corsair shows this is having a 27% load. This is about what I've noticed is it's just wildly off. And I can't tell for sure where it's getting this number from. But in my opinion, this CPU load screen is just really not that usable to me. The rest of these are going to really just be the same. We're just going to go through them real quick. You get GPU frequency. GPU load seems to be accurate as well. The rest of these I didn't notice any anomalies with. RAM size, RAM temp, RAM load, and that's really all of the statistics you get. The next one in the list, carousel, is really just a way you can just sequence those through. So right beneath here, you can choose which ones you want. Just highlight. So if you only want to see CPU temp and GPU temp, just select those two. You can apply it. You can change the speed at which it changes those, and it will flip just back and forth. But you can go ahead and select all of these, and we can change the speed of it all the way up. So that looks pretty good. All right, that's carousel. I think that's a cool feature. If you're going to use that, this is one that I actually would use a little bit, with the only negative being is CPU load seems to be off. All right, so the next one in the list, Windows Capture. This is kind of a unique one. And if you click the Window Capture button here, you can then select which window you want to capture a piece of. And you'll see here that I've got the ThermalTake RGB Plus program. And I can move it around and select whatever I want. But if I change the window here, I can select like IQ. And I actually kind of like this feature. Whether I'll use it very much, I don't know. But let's say coolant temp. Let's say that's one that I wanted to look at occasionally. And it doesn't really necessarily fit perfectly here, but I could just grab a piece of that. Say just like, well, let's grab the whole thing. Let's see how that looks. And of course, it's got a zoom slider window, but the mouse button works just fine for zooming into that. Okay, and then we can apply that. Now, one thing I've noticed with the Windows Capture is because it's grabbing out of an application in a browser, sometimes the resolution is not very good when it does it, but you get the basic idea. The LCD screen just mimics whatever you happen to capture there. Now, it is a window capture. I can't capture like off of the desktop itself, it looks like. But that's a very cool feature. Of course, if we open a browser and we can go ahead and select this browser window, we can put the Google logo in here, get it nice and centered, apply it again. Now it says Google on the screen. There we go. But one thing you should be aware of is that if you do window capture and I go ahead and just click something, you can see that it doesn't maintain. It's only capturing that part of the window no matter what's displayed in it. And so as I scroll up and down on the Google website here, it just changes with it. All right, so next in the list, we get weather. You do need to turn on location information, and it will just, I think, take your IP address, kind of figure out roundabout where you are, and it will give you a weather display. It's going to give you, temperature, time, all of the above, and you can change all of the colors and everything for those text headers as well. So very cool. I don't know how often personally I would use this, but I think it's kind of cool, for just a static display if you want to have that there. Now the clock is exactly what you would think it is. Now you can go ahead and select a couple of different styles. There's no way to know at all what those styles look like, because there's no preview. And you get just an old style clock there. Of course, you can change all of the colors. You can change the background, the clock face, the date, and the clock hands. Style 2, we'll kind of go through these. Still kind of an old style clock. Then we get kind of a digital clock here. Style 4 is, just another rendition of a digital clock. You don't really get a whole lot of control, in my personal opinion. So the clock displays, it's not that they're not cool, or for what they are. I mean, I'm glad that those are there, but it just seems like just kind of a miss. Like there should just be like a ton of other options of really cool things. At least let me change the font. Let me do some really cool stuff with it. ThermalTake needs to add to this, in my opinion. Because a clock is actually one thing I think you would maybe leave sitting there. But it's just kind of disappointing that these are the only styles that you get. You get 4 styles. They're all kind of seem stuck in the past, and you can't modify any of them or do anything. If anybody's aware of any way to modify any of that, let me know. But natively within the software here, you really can't do that. So the last thing I want to talk about is the profiles feature of the RGB Plus 2.0. Now this will be one thing that you can use to select different setups that you have. So if you've went in and done some customization work and you just want to be able to quickly get back to it, using the profiles as a way to do that, you're just going to create a new profile, and then I would go ahead and select whatever graphic you want on here or whatever stat screen you want. So let's use a stat screen in this case. So let's say GPU temp. So we'll go ahead and apply that. And then we can come over here and we can edit it. And then we can just put in GPU temp. So then we can go ahead and if we come back to Halloween, then of course we can come back to GPU temp. All right, well there you have it. There is the LCD panel upgrade kit for the ThermalTake Tower 500. The hardware is really cool. The panel, it fits right in. There's no issues that I've had with it. Now we'll say too that the panel should be interchangeable, not just with the front, but you could put it on either side if you so chose to do that, right? But at least know that it would fit there, no problem. There's not an issue with that. And so the panel itself, it's not a super high resolution panel, but it looks good enough. The colors pop. Probably looks better in person than it does on this camera. Anyways, overall, I think all of the features that you can do, they're mostly useful. There's, as we mentioned going through this video, there's a couple that are not, like CPU load kind of sucks. It's not accurate. I wouldn't trust it or use it at this point. I'd have to see an update. But again, if anybody knows, put it in the comments below. I'd be interested in knowing what your experience is with that, if you'll test it if you have this. So going through here, I just wish there were more customization options, going through all of these. I wish you could just kind of size things and do some more creative type things with it. But that said, for what you do have, the upload file, a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. I like that it'll do videos. You can choose any graphic. I actually played around with the window capture feature quite a bit. Was able to get some pretty cool stuff off the web. The rest of these all work pretty good. Useful as a clock, but it just doesn't look very good. Like ThermalTake needs to add some more updated options to that clock. So should you go out and buy this? Well, it's going to be a lot like most of the RGB lighting. If it's a look you like, if there's a specific theme you're going for in your office, in your gaming room, and this will add to it, by all means, go do it. The hardware works good. It's, the plus to it is its simplicity. It's really quick to get installed. You don't have to fuss around with it. One thing I will mention, I did look a little bit to see if any other applications would control this panel, like AIDA64. I haven't played with tons of those things, but I wasn't able to find a way to get AIDA64 to like talk to this panel yet. So if anybody's got more information, contact me and let me know that as to maybe how you got it going or what applications would use this panel. There might be some more functionality from another application out there, but at least on the surface, it didn't look like there was any of that available, not easily anyways. The other thing I think would be really cool coming down the future, if I had to give ThermalTake some advice, would be like do some custom alerting, like temperature, things like that, and definitely put in the ability if you run a certain program to do a certain sequence on here, or somehow make this more interactive with certain programs and games, and put some status information, some software interaction. Anyways, with that said, as always, let me know what your experience is with this LCD panel. I'd be curious to know. Do you have this? Would you buy this? What do you think of how it looks and what the options you have here? If you've used it, let me know. Let the community know what your experiences are with it. What have you done with it? Have you hacked it? Have you customized it? And done? So, as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about this particular product, please let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to help out the best I can and when I can. And that is going to do it for today. Thanks for watching.